to breaking news, sleepless in the Senate. There's a live look at the Senate floor right now. You can see not a lot of smiles there, a lot of fatigue. Lawmakers have been at it all night as Republicans try to push to pass President Trump's sweeping domestic agenda bill. We're coming up on 22 hours now since the marathon voting session began. Just a short time ago, Vice President J.D. Vance arrived on Capitol Hill. He could potentially cast a tie-breaking vote if the bill falls short on Republican support. Is his arrival a sign that maybe they think they are close to voting? We don't know. Republican leadership says they're close, but the last we heard from them directly was at 4:30 this morning, and there's still nothing scheduled. So far, the Senate has adopted only a handful of amendments. President Trump, who is set to travel to Florida this morning, he's pushing to have the bill on his desk by Friday. It still has to go back to the House of Representatives. The multi-trillion-dollar legislation would extend the 2017 Trump tax cuts and spend billions on border security and defense and slash social safety net programs. Republicans have been working overtime to win over holdouts, feeling queasy about the cuts it would make to Medicaid. More than 12 million people could be pushed from the rolls. And then there are those concerned about the fiscal cost. The nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office estimates it would add more than $3 trillion to the national debt. And that's where Elon Musk comes in. The president's one-time friend calls that, quote, insane. He's threatening to form his own third party and to fund primary challenges to any member of Congress who votes in favor of it. Now, we're standing by to hear from President Trump. He leaves the White House shortly, and he could comment out loud for the first time on this new threat from Musk. So a lot going on this morning on both ends of Pennsylvania Avenue. Let's get to CNN's Arlette Saenz on Capitol Hill for the latest on whether or not there'll be a vote. What are you hearing?
Yeah, John, well, these senators stayed up all night, and there is still not a clear end in sight for this vote on President Trump's domestic policy agenda bill. Now, in the last 40 minutes, Vice President Vance arrived here at the Capitol, and he was asked by reporters whether he thought they would be able to get this bill across the finish line today. And he said, we're going to find out. Now, of course, this is a top priority for President Trump and his team, as this bill would help advance and implement many of his domestic policy priorities. But there are still a number of hurdles that are standing in the way of this bill actually being passed. As you mentioned, these senators have been voting for close to 22 hours on amendments to this bill. So far, there have been 3 amendments that have been adopted relating to AI regulation in the states, Medicaid, and also unemployment benefits. But there are still many question marks around the amendment votes and the final passage. There is a group of conservative senators who want to see a vote on an amendment from Senator Rick Scott passed related to the federal match rate for Medicaid to states. There's also big question marks around Senator Susan Collins, who has not said how she would vote on final passage of this bill. And another big question mark is Senator Lisa Murkowski of Alaska. The Senate parliamentarian has struck down some provisions that would have benefited her state. So these are all people that Senate leadership will be trying to work in this coming hours as they are trying to push this bill across the finish line. Now, I can tell you, these senators are quite tired. They've been fueled by coffee, energy drinks. Many have had blankets as they have spent the night on the Senate floor. Senator Thom Tillis actually playing a game of hide and seek via the television cameras with his family back home who are watching. So many of these senators are eager to finish up the work on this, but there's still no clear end in sight, no timeline for when they will hold a vote on final passage, and then still major questions laying there as to whether they will have the Republican votes to get this passed.
Yeah, we just don't know. We're looking for any signals, any signs of smiles or joy on the Senate floor. So far, none. Zero. Not a lot of happy faces down there, although I do see Lisa Murkowski sitting in the well right now. Arlette Saenz on Capitol Hill for us. Keep us posted as to what you hear. Thank you very much. We're standing by to hear from President Trump. He's leaving shortly for a visit to Florida, and this will be his first chance to respond out loud to really this new round of the fight with his one-time friend Elon Musk, who has gone after him again on the president's signature domestic tax and spending legislation. Let me show you on the screen here what Elon Musk put out overnight. He put out a tweet that said, anyone who campaigned promise of reducing spending but continues to vote on the biggest debt ceiling increase in history will see their face on this poster in the primary next year. Not subtle there. It says liar. voted to increase America's debt by $5 trillion. All right, with us now, Lee Carter, strategic communications expert and pollster, and Democratic strategist Julia Rosinski. Let me just start with you, Lee. There's this new round in this fight. Musk is putting himself out there again. What will that feel like for those senators who've been up all night who have to vote on this shortly?
I mean, on the one hand, it's not surprising that Elon Musk is doing this. He's been very consistent about spending. This is very much what he's been talking about the whole time. On the other hand, the question is, it's really just about his ego, and are we getting in the limelight and having a fight? But I think that the Republicans who are making the vote need to not be distracted by this. We're seeing, though, a huge fracture within the Republican Party. 75% of MAGA Republicans support this bill, but 75% of non-MAGA supporters, Republicans, actually oppose the bill. So you've got a huge fracture in that party, and I think Elon Musk is symbolic of what that is.
And just so people know, Trump, on his Truth Social platform, has responded to Musk already. We haven't heard from him out loud, which we may shortly, but among other things, Trump accused Musk of wanting subsidies. He say Elon may get more subsidy than any human being in history by far, and without subsidies, Elon would probably have to close up shop and head back to South Africa. So, Julie, the significance of this new rift, what do you see?
Well, first of all, Trump is not wrong in the sense that Elon Musk has a tremendous amount of taxpayer subsidies from the United States going to his businesses. And the reality is that if Trump takes away those subsidies or threatens them, I think Musk will cave the way he caved the last time when Trump came after him. I mean, this is not a balanced fight because Elon Musk is the client and Donald Trump is the person who's providing him with the money in the form of the presidency. So, look, Musk can tweet all he wants, but the reality is that if Trump actually moves against him and takes away his subsidies or threatens them, I suspect Musk will cave.
Let's discuss this more with Julia Manchester, a politics reporter for The Hill. Julia, it's been a sleepless night in the Senate. Republicans here have very little room for error. They can only afford 3 defections from their party. And already we've had Senators Rand Paul and Thom Tillis come out against this legislation. That is some really tough math. Are Republicans going to be able to keep almost everybody else in line?
Well, that's the big question, MJ, and really all eyes are on Lisa Murkowski, the senator from Alaska, as well as Maine Senator Susan Collins, 2 moderates who have voiced a lot of concerns about those Medicaid cuts, as well as SNAP cuts, or cuts to that food assistance program known as SNAP. We've seen throughout the night that there has been a whipping operation led by Majority Leader John Cornyn to really try to convince at least Murkowski to get on board. We'll see if that ultimately happens. But like Eva said in her report, there's still these ideological divisions that exist within the conference. You have the moderates like Murkowski and Collins concerned about some of these cuts to these government programs. But then on the other side of it, you have fiscal hawks, fiscal conservatives like Senator Rick Scott, who's proposed an amendment that would essentially pare down the Affordable Care Act's expansion in the states. So definitely disagreement there within the Republican conference today.
And Julia, Senator Elizabeth Warren spoke with our Caitlin Collins last night, and she said basically, I agree with Elon Musk. This bill is terrible. She said the idea of borrowing $3.5 trillion on the nation's credit card in order to be able to give tax breaks to the likes of Elon Musk is financially nuts. You talked about this a little bit, just about the fiscal conservatives, but how vocal have they been in general throughout all of this?
Well, we've seen them certainly raise concerns, and we saw, for example, like I said, Rick Scott introduce that amendment. But I think Elon Musk, particularly the posts on X he's been sending throughout the day yesterday, last night, it'll be interesting to see how it impacts the Senate. But I'm curious to see how it impacts the House. Yesterday, he was, tagging a number of Freedom Caucus members in his post, certainly launching a pressure campaign. Of course, the bill would have to pass the Senate before it goes into the House, but he is certainly trying to launch this pressure campaign. He's talked about starting a new political party, primarying some of these members. Now you have President Trump back on Truth Social talking about Elon Musk, so maybe a reigniting of that feud we saw earlier this month. But look, I think the fiscal conservatives certainly have a lot of concerns. You've already seen Senator Rand Paul. He seems opposed to the bill because of how much it contributes to the deficit. So we'll see if any more hop onto that bandwagon.